Hey everybody, welcome to Represent Jesus Well, an RCC podcast all about uncovering the ways people endure, live, and lead in ways that represent Jesus well. It's also the podcast formerly known as Unscripted. I am so excited today because I am here with my good friend, longtime friend, used to be my boss for a long time. I'm just thrilled that you're here today. Mike Holba, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Sam. It's fun to be back.
I love having you here. This is awesome. It's funny. I'm thinking about this because this is you just found out this morning that we're changing the name of the podcast, so it's kind of exciting.
Super smart. I like it.
Well, thanks for making me feel good about it. That's great. But here's the reason. So I'm going to talk about that for just a bit, and we're going to get into some things I really want to talk about with you. I'm actually really excited that I get to talk with you about this. This idea of representing Jesus well. It comes out of this idea that we are like ambassadors of Jesus. Like, we were made in God's image, and we're supposed to, like, the theological word is image God in the world. We're supposed to show people what God looks like and the good side of him. So there's this theological basis, but it goes so deep because in order to have this relationship with God and with Jesus, like, it actually changes how you live and how you endure and what kind of makes up your character. And I'm so thrilled that I get the chance to talk to you about this because you've had a doozy of a last number of months.
It's been a stretch.
Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't know, can you give like the minute and a half like overview, and probably like needs like 30 minutes, but
let's try like 30 seconds.
Great.
So I had a few cancer scares.
Yeah.
All fairly significant. The last one was the worst. My back went out this summer, which has been an issue for me during my life, but this one was really bad. So they're trying to deal with that even now. It's not quite dealt with yet. I spent 2 months sitting on the last seat of my couch, hunched over 22 hours a day.
Yeah.
Just in pain, couldn't lay down, couldn't stand up, sat on a folding chair in the shower when I could. It was a bad summer, the worst summer ever. While they're doing all my back stuff, they found a bunch of tumors in my back. And that led to a whole bunch of other stuff, tons of tests, tons of doctors, tons of specialists, all the things. Spinal tap. For a while there, it looked like I might only have a couple months. That would, like, they don't look at your spinal fluid for cancer cells for no reason, and if there's cancer cells in there, it's bad. But there weren't.
I remember having that conversation.
It took like a month to get the answers just on that one stupid test, because that's how things go. People probably can relate. Super scary. With all the testing nowadays, you get results like to your email. Most people do that. You have like Live Well or My Chart or those things, and so every time my phone would ding with the new email, you'd see, it's from the test results, and every time you're afraid. Like, there's always a prayer, like, God, please, not bad news. So
yeah,
there was a couple months, especially one real bad month, of like waiting every day for results and being afraid when the email thing would ding on your phone because you're sort of afraid to open it. So yeah, it was a tough stretch, but in the end, it doesn't look like I have cancer. It looks like I got a lot of weird stuff that they're still monitoring.
Okay.
So that's the bottom line. And in my back, through lots of procedures and things, it's way better and continuing to get better. So there.
So first, I'm so glad that that's the news. Like that, we skip into the end of the story right now.
Yeah,
really
trying to make it quick because it's probably boring to listen to for too long.
But the caught up story is things are going well, or in a positive direction.
Way better. Yeah, it was a dark stretch, but it's better now.
I'm so thrilled because I remember like having that conversation with you where the phone call was essentially either I have quite a while to live or I have 2 months. And that was a moment, like, because honestly, early on you had back trouble, but I've seen you throw your back out a dozen times, at least once a year.
Yeah. And
like, it'd be really painful. So when I first heard about this, and it's like, this is something that you just normally happen, and it's just a really bad one.
Yeah.
And so it was something I had to track with and understand and see.
Yeah, it's a long story why it was so much worse, but the back thing was way worse than ever before.
Yeah.
Which, maybe was good because then they found all these tumors, but then it wasn't good because the tumors were all wrapped in your spine and you really can't do anything about them. And then it was, but they're not probably cancer. We're going to keep looking at them. So
wow.
It's sort of there's a stark reality though too, like, okay, you might only have a couple months.
Yeah.
That was new for me. I've seen things in life. I've been a pastor 20 years. I've walked through things with people in their life. But when they tell you, like, okay, we're looking for this, and if we find it, here's the story, it was life-changing, like, in the dumbest of ways. I need new tires for my truck. I wasn't going to buy them.
No kidding.
Like, the truck, it's a 10-year-old truck. It's worth what it's worth. I wasn't going to buy $1,000 worth of tires, only to have my wife have to sell it and lose $1,000 on tires because I'm dead. I wanted a $100 thing for my boat, I didn't want to buy it because my boat's worth what it is. It's like, it's a waste of money if you're dead in 2 months. So I have a whole list of things like, I'm not doing that if I'm dying, and I'll know soon. So that's new, and that's a different way to live.
Okay.
Like, how I'm not spending any money. Like,
yeah.
I'm super financially conservative.
You can go from one end to the other, like, oh, we're fine, we're good, I'm going to do this, to like, nope, nothing. And totally, and I've experienced that. But here's the thing I want to ask you about. You, out of anybody I've ever known, have always had the ability to live, the cheesy country song is "Live Like You're Dying," right?
Yeah.
You've always had this mentality. You've told stories about why that's the case. Yeah. Why was this different? Explain how it felt to be different.
It's different. The reason I've always lived like that is because my brother died in a plane crash when I was 17, and it just changes your whole perspective. Like, life can change in a moment, so you better live it like you're dying. So that's the summary of why, since age 17, I've been more like that. And other things throughout life sort of even put exclamation points on that for me to live in that way. But when they tell you, like, oh, this is really bad and there's nothing we can do about it if it's bad, that's just different, because it's like more of a certainty.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I could die today. Everyone can die today. It can happen. But it's more of a certainty when a doctor says no one comes back from this. There's not anything we can do. That's different. And what it did for me was actually really good, beautiful in a way. You sit there, right, and there's crying and worry and all that stuff with people you care about and everything. But I started thinking about, like, okay, well, if I only got a couple months, what am I going to do, right?
Yeah.
Like, I've always wanted to go on an African safari, still have never gone. There's different things I'd like to own or whatever and haven't owned. So if I only got 2 months, what am I going to do? And my answer was, don't spend any money, leave it for my family.
Yeah.
But then I thought, well, what has my life been about? And I really feel like in some way I've helped some people.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe proudish of two things in life. I have a really good family that loves me, kids that I have a good relationship with. I think I did that well, now that they're grown and you still have a good relationship and stuff. I think I did the husband and father role as well as I could have. And I feel proud about it, because it's hard. It's hard to be a good husband and father. So I felt good about that. And then I felt good about helping some people. So then I thought, well, if I only got 2 months left, I better help some people, because that's the one thing I'm sort of feeling good about.
Yeah.
So it reminded me of that, right? Like, that's what I'm supposed to be all about, not safaris or new trucks or whatever.
You'll take helping people over.
That's what I feel good about. Like, if I die today, that I feel good about. At least I've helped some people, and I've done plenty of dumb things and wrong things too along the way. I'm far from perfect, but I do feel like I've helped some people along the way. So I thought, I'm just going to help people if I got 2 months. So when I engage with someone somewhere, I'm going to try to make their day better.
Yeah.
And that's how I've been living since summer. And it's amazing. It's so easy. Like, anyone I see anywhere, it's like, you don't got to make junk up, but if you're curious about something about them or impressed by something, like, the easiest thing is, like, to tell someone, if you're interacting with a person somewhere and they do their job well, just say that. Like, you know what? You do your job really well.
Yeah.
That starts all these conversations.
Isn't it fun too?
Like, you did make their day better.
Yeah.
But then it opens up, like, they can't believe anyone even noticed, because basically no one's ever told they do a good job. You just get told you stink all the time, work harder, faster, whatever. It's just really changed my life walking around like that. I'm sorry.
No, it's really interesting. So I think our children's director, Shauna, one of the things she's talked about recently is noticing things for kids. Like, that's how you show you care. Not by just picking out things. And what I love is when you have that curiosity and you're looking for it in other people, and you see they do a good job and you just point it out. Like, it just brightens everything up. It actually changes your perspective too. Definitely. In so many ways. I love that.
Okay, so here's an example of that.
Yeah,
yesterday I was kind of crabby. Just kind of having an off day, kind of no real reason for it, and you feel kind of stupid, because, like, why am I crabby today? This is dumb. Like, I'm screwing up my own day.
Yeah.
But you're still kind of crabby. It probably happens, for everybody. And I had to get gas, and I'm like, I got to cut this out. So I don't normally go into the store at the gas station, because everything in there that you can eat is bad for you, first of all.
Absolutely.
Right? There's donuts and candy, and it's all bad for you. And it's all expensive. So I just generally fill up the gas and leave. I rarely go in. But I'm like, I'm just going to let that thing fill, and I'm going to go in there, and I'm just going to see who I bump into and try to make their day better. And I'm not an outgoing person. Like, people may think that from being on stage and stuff, but I'm great if I have a purpose. But if I don't have a purpose, I'll just sit by myself quietly. I'm totally fine with that. I went in there, and I had so many good conversations.
Really?
Just there was a lady behind the counter. There was a dude buying some alcohol. There was all this stuff happening. And there's just junk to talk about, to teach one of them. It's just, I think that's God. Like, you go in with the intention of, I'm going to try to make people's days better.
Yeah.
God does something then.
That's amazing. I love that.
I don't know what's going to happen, God. I'm just going to go in here and see. And if nothing happens, I was just off. Like, my intuition was off. Mm-hmm. But if something good happens, then I did the right thing. And like, so many different good conversations happened. And I walked out feeling great. And like, my whole mood changed. And I was trying to force a mood change all day. But I couldn't.
That's so interesting. I mean, we're off on a bit of a tangent, but I want to stay here for just a minute. When you said your mood changed, but you were trying to force it and it wasn't working when you were forcing it, yeah. I think that's so interesting because I think any one of us can relate to, I'm just going to plow through.
Yeah.
But there's something that happens when you like try to help somebody that takes the focus off of you. That's like a little release or something. I don't know what it is, but it's amazing to watch how that happens.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. Okay. This is the question that I've been thinking about for really like weeks, planning to sit down and chat with you about this. This is the one that's been on my mind. So you spent basically 20 years being a pastor where you show up at church every Sunday, you speak, you deal with all these things. And there's this thing that happens when you have to give a sermon where you're always looking for sermon illustrations. There's always a sermon illustration in everything in life. It's just always there. But how has this been different for you? Because you've gone through struggles and been the person sitting up on the stage speaking every weekend and had to deal with that and think about that and have that maybe even give you some purpose. But now there's this idea that you don't have to perform for anybody. Not that you're performing, but you don't have to stand up and deliver for people with something that was powerful from your life. Now your faith is sustaining you without any aspect of performance later.
Yeah.
How has that changed the way you've experienced this?
It's a little purer.
Yeah.
I think I've always been really transparent here.
You have.
So I've never really been a different person on stage than in real life. But you are right. I had a couple things when you step on stage Sunday morning. My dream was always like it made people's weeks better.
Yeah.
Like they gave an hour of their time. It has to be worth their time. So the worship has to be worshipful, like it has been for so many years. And the message needs to be inspiring a little bit because life is difficult, So you do have that pressure a bit to be inspiring and to try to share goodness because God is good. Jesus is good. You want to share it. And therefore, you can't necessarily share all of your struggles, right? Because we all struggle. But you can't get up there every Sunday and be like, oh, it's been such a terrible week.
Yeah, it's not fun.
This is what I've learned.
Nobody needs to hear that.
Yeah, they need to be inspired. So that pressure's gone in a way. And because of that, how you live during the week, you're not thinking about that. And thinking about that was good in some ways because, like, wait a minute, if I'm going to get on stage on Sunday and speak, I better live it.
It's a great check.
It's a great check. Like, okay, I can't have road rage if I'm going to go on Sunday and say everyone's supposed to be nice all the time because you're just following Jesus. Represent Jesus well, you don't have road rage.
No, exactly. Yeah.
So that pressure was good.
Totally.
Like that pressure was good. And now there isn't that. So it's just more genuine in that I'm either going to be good or not based on my relationship with God or my relationship with Jesus. And no one else even knows.
Yeah.
You don't share it really like I'm sharing it here, but like going into the gas station yesterday, I'm not doing that for any other reason than I think God told me to do it. There's no possibly ulterior motive. And sometimes there is, and people might even wonder, oh, they're on stage, there's this ulterior motive. And I've never seen it in you. I don't think you've ever seen it in me, but it is there. It's lurking in the dark.
If you wanted to, you could do it.
Yeah, you could. You could have ulterior motives all the time, and you try to fight it, but sometimes you even question yourself. It's like, am I saying this for pure reasons or for something else?
Yes.
And I think an honest, good pastor of any type of church always asks himself that question.
Yep.
Why am I really saying or doing this?
I 100% agree with that.
And that's a good check. Now there's not necessarily that stage check on Sunday, but there's that check with God all day, every day.
Yeah.
And the stage doesn't muddle that up at all.
Yeah. So has your faith changed a bit? I mean, not because I know that you've always had this deep relationship with God. And I know you talk with him, you pray on a regular basis in different ways, but has it shaped any of those kind of practices that you would do or anything like that?
It's good to be a regular person again. I was a regular person for 35-ish years before I came here and was a pastor. And now this return to you're not a pastor anymore.
Yeah.
You're just like everyone else who attends church, like everyone you've been speaking to for 20 years.
Yeah.
And you're understanding life a bit better from their perspective. I think I did very well early on because I taught for 12 years, as a teacher. And now it's back to that. Here's what life's like when you don't work at a church. So it does change your relationship with God a little bit, but I think it's a healthy thing.
Okay.
And it's a freeing thing. Like if you go into a gas station and are kind to someone and they know you're a pastor, they think it's just because you're a pastor.
Yeah.
That's what they're supposed to do. It's like a nun who helps you. Well, a nun, who could be purer than a nun?
Yeah.
A nun loves God. A nun loves Jesus.
At least they're supposed to. At least they're supposed
Well,
to.
yeah, that's what I mean. You got to think 90% of nuns are probably super faithful, amazing women, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That love God a ton. But they're a nun. So if they do something nice for you, it's like they're a nun. They're supposed to. They're a pastor. They're supposed to, right? So when you're actually genuine with someone as a regular person, a non-church staff, they see it differently.
Yeah.
It's more genuine for them. They're doing this because they're following God or they're a kind person. It's not because their job title. And I like that because they're seeing God a little bit more in it.
Yeah.
When you're a pastor, you're supposed to do it.
Yep. You're right. You're
When
absolutely
you're a regular
right.
person, you're doing it because you follow God.
Okay. Yeah, I completely agree. So it's interesting because when I'm thinking about that, I'm teaching about that stuff on a Sunday and talking about the way that you can represent Jesus well and the way you act and interact with other people. And I think I feel that sensitivity with people because they're thinking like, oh, he's a pastor. Of course he's going to try and do that. But what I'm hearing you say, and I appreciate, is doing it that way, actually choosing to try and improve people's lives, be kind to people, love people well, see them, be curious about them. Those are all things that when you honor the fact that God made them as well, they're God's kids as well, whatever, you experience a better life because of it. You experience the benefits of following God. And it's just normal everyday stuff. It's not for any show. It's not for anything else. It's just literally in the bread and butter way that makes life better.
I just would like to inspire people to try, right? Like you're right. There is this blessing from God. Life is better when you care for others and do for others. It's just hard to get past the selfishness of doing for yourself.
Yeah.
You know, we're just the whole world tries to get us to do, buy, whatever, spend all your time for yourself. And to start thinking differently and say, I'm going to do for others is really a hard sell.
Yes.
You know, it's a hard sell because everything is selling something else. But man, God blesses that. And I just wish people would try just as an experiment. I'm just going to try to do exactly what God's telling me to do versus what everything else and just see if it makes a difference or not. It's like if you've been living life for 20 years or 50 years or however many, just try. What do you got to lose?
Yeah.
You know, like at the gas station, like I think God's telling me to go and be nice to people. Just go try and do it. I didn't know what would happen. I might have struck out. I don't always get, like I think God's telling me something. I'm not always 100% correct.
Yeah.
Right? But you try. And maybe he wasn't even telling me that. But he saw me try to do what he wanted. And he's like, I'm going to make this good for him.
That's awesome.
And I'm going to bless him so much, he's going to feel better about himself afterwards.
Yeah.
And then I wasn't crabby anymore. Like my whole day was better. And all I did was go in a gas station for 5 minutes. You know?
I love that. I think that's so great.
So you don't got to be like, you don't need seminary. You don't need a Bible study. You just got to say, and you say it so well. Okay, what would represent Jesus well? And just try to do that. Your life just gets better.
Yeah, exactly. And for your life gets better, their life gets better. It's just a beautiful thing.
I know, and it sounds so hokey. Like I hope people aren't listening and think, oh, that's so hokey. But just think and try it. Just try it.
So I want to get to something specific. So when you go into the doctor's office, nurses, everything, the temptation is this is all about me because I need to get better.
Yeah.
So that seems like an ideal place to do things differently.
I've had the best conversations.
I want to hear about this.
Super long conversations with doctors. Like, you know how they rush in and out? Like we've all experienced it. They have so much to do. They'll just sit around and talk.
That's so great.
I know a ton of nurses now. I have immense respect for nurses. It's my personal most respected profession. I really respect nurses for a variety of reasons. I've had all these people on the phone scheduling like ultrasounds and MRIs and stuff. Like everyone wants to talk. You just got to open the door.
You say, "How's your day today?"
Yeah. Or wow. Like I go down to the cancer center in Milwaukee a lot, and like there's a woman I'm thinking of right now that had these super amazing fingernails. You know, and it's like I mentioned her fingernails. Because I'd never seen anything like it. You know, I was like, I never seen anything like that. Tell me about why. And she did. And I'm like, that's amazing. And we end up talking about life. And she doesn't go to church anywhere. The woman should be a pastor. The more we talk, she's like, I'm going to pray for you about this. And well, here's how. Like she had nothing but trouble her whole life. Grew up in a real difficult situation. Had a baby at age 15 herself. And just struggles and struggles and struggles in life. She loves God and Jesus so much.
Yeah.
And the conversation was beautiful. We're praying for each other. Like me and the lady at the doctor office. It's amazing.
That's so great.
A lady prayed for me over the phone, and another one, like, it's crazy. You just everyone wants to talk about it. You don't need to be afraid to talk about God. You just don't tell people, ask.
Let me hear more about that. What do you mean by that?
Too often people think they know something, they got to tell everyone else who isn't asking. Like, if someone's not asking for advice, you probably shouldn't give it, basically, right?
Correct.
You're a parent.
Yep.
You're a really good parent. I've seen you. You've got 3 kids who are amazing kids. And until someone asks you about parenting, they're not listening to you. You know, you could say to your neighbor or friend or whatever, you should do this, and hopefully you know better because they don't want to hear that. Unless they see what you do and be like, hey, how do you do bedtime? Or, you know, like whatever, right? Same with faith, man. People learn something at church or they read the Bible and they think they got to tell everyone and no one's listening yet.
Yeah.
Give them a reason to listen. Like, care about them first. Ask them questions about their life. Or if they're good at their job, tell them they're good at their job. Like, make a friend first.
Make a friend first. That's fantastic. One of the things I love about this Represent Jesus Well thing is not like force Jesus on people. That's not the thing. It's represent him well. And what is amazing is people are surprised when you act with character in a place where most people don't. And they're like, why did you do that? You could have easily gotten away with X. Well, let me tell you. But that's the why question, right?
Yeah.
So how does that play out with the nurses when you ask questions? I'm just curious. Is there like a specific question you ask? Because sometimes I like to have questions like filed away.
It's usually just a conversation.
Okay.
It starts with showing you're like a caring person.
Okay.
For example, here's another one. There was a nurse that came in and she had gray hair. Mm-hmm. It was super pretty.
Yeah.
So that's a little awkward. You know, you're going to compliment someone's beauty or whatever. I don't really give a rip. Like, I'm not going to say anything dirty.
Yeah.
You know, so she came in and I thought her hair was super pretty. Like, it just, the way it was cut, the different colors of gray, it was really pretty. And so I just mentioned, like, you got really pretty hair. And she started crying.
Oh, man.
She's like, thank you. I've been struggling so much. I don't know what to do. I let it go gray. You know, like, older women have, like, they dye their hair and they sometimes choose let it go gray, whatever. It's a thing. Men have things, women have things. And she decided to let it go gray and she felt awkward about it. She felt she didn't look so as good as she used to look. And she was actually beautiful. You know, and so it just changed her whole perspective about herself. And then we just started talking.
Yeah.
And we're talking about God and faith and but it started with just noticing something about her. Whether it's fingernails or tattoos are the best. It always has good conversations, you know.
Everybody's got a story, right?
Everyone's got a story. And even if they're good at their job. Like, there was a waitress recently that was really good. And I told her, and she ended up sitting down with us and like putting her hand on my shoulder and like, it's so stressful here. I'm going to quit because of this and this at this restaurant, you know, whatever. She's telling me her whole life story while she's serving me. Like, she's literally sat down while she's serving us dinner. Like,
that's so great.
But anyone, like, none of those people think I'm a pastor, right? They just think I'm a regular dude. If I would have led with, hey, I'm the pastor at wherever,
you should
it wouldn't have worked.
Listen to me.
So everyone listening, if you're not a pastor, like, you all have this opportunity. There's a woman named Colleen. She's a scheduler of medical appointments in Milwaukee, like for a bunch of different organizations and hospitals. She broke down on the phone. I was having trouble getting results and the scheduling thing done. And she's like, this is just horrible. And she starts crying on the phone, like, of what I had to go through. And she fixed it all for me like an angel.
Yeah.
And like, maybe I don't even know. Like, maybe God, was she? I don't know. But we had this great conversation afterwards. And she's like, and she didn't know the whole time I was a pastor, right?
Yeah. And
at the end, she's like, well, I'm going to pray for you. And I'm like, well, Colleen, I need to tell you, like, I was a pastor for 20 years. I'm a counselor now. I mostly counsel, but like, I was a pastor. And she's like, you were a pastor? And it started a whole other conversation. It was amazing. She's offering to pray for me, and she's a scheduler of medical appointments all day long. That probably works from home. That's why I say, like, some of this has been really good. Like, it's the worst summer ever. It just is. Like, I couldn't go fishing all summer.
Yeah.
Like, summer sucked. It just did. But so much good has come out of it that hopefully makes every day better. I might only have a couple months or 20 years. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was forced to consider my perspective. It forced me to sit there all day long in pain and think, which sucked. I said it. But what I learned from it was life-changing.
Okay. So I want to drill down just a little bit more on
anything you got.
The harder part. Mm-hmm. So there were days where it was awful.
I didn't want to die.
You didn't want to die?
I'm okay with dying. Like, I believe in heaven. I believe I'm going to heaven. I believe what God says about heaven or Jesus says about heaven. I believe all that. So I'm not really scared of the dying part. But like, there's certain things here, like I said, helping people's been special. My kids are special. I'd like to see grandkids someday. Mm-hmm. I was like, God, please, I'd just like to see some grandkids before I die. You know, everyone probably has different things. Yeah. You know, so there was hard parts. Yeah.
Okay. And
there was one result that came in an email that I saw and cried because it was good. And I was scared about when I knew that like there's all these different tests that come.
Yeah.
There's kind of a title, so I knew what the test was going to be before I read down further. And then it was good, and I just started crying, like, because that was a big one. Like, there's some tests that are more telling than others.
Yeah. You've always been kind of a steady person. How has it been to not be able to be the steady person?
Good question. You feel a little useless in a way.
Yeah.
Like here at RCC, I felt like I had use.
Yeah.
Okay. My dream was to help people, and I believe that I did while I was here. So that I felt useful every day. Like, who are you going to help today? Like, and it might be through teaching on Sunday morning or counseling someone or encouraging a staff member, whatever. But there was always this interaction. When you're sitting at home basically alone, most of the time, you're not able to help anyone, and you just feel like, why? Like, who am I? Like, what do I have a use? Did I only have use when I was a pastor? That. And I think anyone who's retired may go through those sort of things. And now that I'm counseling, well, I couldn't counsel because I was too injured. Like, no one's going to go to a counselor who can't even speak because he hurts so bad. Yeah. So I wasn't able to do my role in ministry or my job. So all I had really was my thoughts. And you start feeling less and less good about yourself.
How'd you deal with that?
I never got angry at God or like dark with God, but I think I got dark with myself. Like, did I really accomplish? If I am dying, did I really accomplish what I'm supposed to? Oh, here was an opportunity that I missed. There was an opportunity that I missed. As you think back through your life, could I have even been a better dad? Like, there was darkness to that. And to deal with it, I think I heard a sermon during that time that the pastor said, he always spent a little time every day thinking about what he would have done differently the day before, and then asking God to help him, like a meditation in the morning, okay?
Yep.
Like, what would I do differently yesterday, and what am I excited to do today? And that turned it for me.
Okay.
That turned like the dark feeling coming in and like weighing you down. Because I thought about it, I was like, well, yesterday I did nothing other than be sad or crabby. Yeah. I don't want that for me or anyone around me. So it was a gentle challenge from him. He talked about his own life. He didn't tell me to do it. But when I heard what he did, I was like, I want to do that. So I just started doing that. That's what sort of got me out of it. Like, first thing in the morning, half an hour in, because I'm not that great first thing, but half an hour in, just sitting down and saying, God, what do I wish I would have done differently yesterday? And then just talking to him about it. Like, sometimes you had to kind of say you're sorry.
Yeah.
And then, okay, but now I just figured out yesterday, well, what am I grateful for and what am I going to do today about it? It was just good for me. So the darkness turned, but it was really from a 1-minute comment in some dude's sermon that got me thinking differently.
Isn't that wild how that can happen?
Yeah.
One little comment like that.
Yeah.
As I think about that, it's tough to be in that place where, having been so, you're a high performing person, and I'm guessing sometimes you feel like your value comes from being a high performing person. Definitely. And yet I know you've stood up on stage and said your value doesn't come from what you accomplish. It comes because God loves you.
Yeah. And who you are to him.
Yeah.
Like, to God, you're perfect. You're special. You're a masterpiece. He wants nothing but good and a positive future for you, to give you hope. There's always good. That's who you really are, as defined by God himself.
Yes.
But it's hard to keep that forefront.
Isn't it?
24/7.
It's so difficult.
Even if you work at a church, like,
yeah,
it's you are who God says you are, not who you want to be or think you are.
Yeah.
You could be, I don't know, the Packers aren't doing so good, so I won't name a Packer. You could be Giannis for the Bucks, right?
Great.
He's an incredible basketball player, but that's not really who he is. That's
correct.
his job. And he's maybe the best in the world at that job, but that's not who he is. Right before God, he's God's creation. He's God's masterpiece. Right?
Yeah.
He's God's son. That's who he is, not an amazing basketball player. And that's who you are, not an amazing pastor. You're God's son first. You're God's creation. You're God's child. You're God's masterpiece, as is everyone listening if you actually look at the Bible for a definition versus society.
Yeah.
Don't look at society for a definition of who you are. Don't even look to yourself. God will tell you who you are. He created you.
Yes.
Like, the creator says what it is, right?
Creator says what it is.
Like if there's an artist and they paint a picture of a tree, it's a tree because I'm the artist.
Yeah, there's a big debate about this, but it's great.
No, I think God defines us as humans.
Yeah.
I think he does.
I agree. Yes. And I think you're right. The creator has the ability to say, this is my intent with you. I intended to create.
There's different kinds of artists, right? Like there's impressionists. It doesn't even really necessarily look like a tree.
What is it to
but
you?
They said it's a tree. Or there's abstract artists, right?
Yeah.
Or surrealists. Like, there's all the different ways to represent a tree.
Yeah.
But the artist is the one who named it.
Yes.
God named you.
Yes.
And he named you a masterpiece.
Yes.
As everyone else. You just got to live it.
Yes.
And it's hard. It's hard in the darkest of times.
Yes. So with that, that's a great segue to this as we kind of finish out here. One, I'm just really grateful to have you here. Like this whole wild season for you have been just hopeful, and I'm just excited that you're here. We talk about church stuff later after this.
I thought 2020 was bad, man. 2022,
like brutal.
This is worse than the COVID season, I think. Personally,
yeah, totally.
2022 has been a harder year than 20.
Oh man, that's saying something. What I want to finish with is this. So you said that you have value based on what God says, and yet you're a high-performing person. This is kind of the last question a bit. How do you balance those two things? How do you say, I want to perform and I want to do stuff because I feel like God's given me a voice, God's given me talent, God's given me the ability to keep breathing and keep on doing stuff, and at the very same time, know that you've learned something over the last 6 months or seen or experienced that, like having value in the midst of it. How do you hold on to that tension, knowing that it's not about what you accomplish, but you want to accomplish a lot? Because, I mean, when people are listening, there's a lot of people that are leaders and want to do the best thing, and they're like working super hard, and maybe at the pitfall of not spending as much time as they normally would with their family, or not being completely present, or kind of always wiped out. How do you maybe see that in a fun way? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sadly, most people are stressed and wiped out, and
yes.
that's what our society's become. It's hard not to be stressed out these days. But that's not who you are, right? Like it comes back to being God's creation, and it's certainly not about what you could do, because God could do anything he wanted to do even without you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
God didn't need me to start a church in Ripon. He doesn't need you to lead a church in Ripon. He assigned those duties to us, I believe, and I believe I was obedient, and I believe you're obedient. God called you to your leadership role, and you obeyed. And some days, I know, Sam, are really super hard, aren't they?
They sure are.
They sure are. And sometimes you try really hard, and people still call you stupid, and like whatever, right? I know your job is super hard. I know it is. I did it. However, too much, God would say, too much who has been given much is expected, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not about performance. It's just being obedient. Like God has given me certain skills, and I think he expects me to use those skills to represent Jesus well.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. It comes back to your thing. Like I have a certain skill set. So do you. So does everybody. And all you have to do is be yourself.
Yes.
That's it. Just be you, and then follow Jesus' direction. Like, because some parts of me kind of stink, right?
Yeah.
So I'm me
I feel you.
with the good stuff, and the stuff that isn't so good, I'm trying to become better, trying to become more like Jesus, like we all should be.
Yeah.
But in the end, you got to be you, and you got to use what God's given you for good.
Yeah.
And good might be encouraging one person today, your waitress, and you did exactly what God called you to do today. And good might be writing a sermon that hundreds of people are going to hear on Sunday. I don't know what everyone's good is.
Yeah.
But you can know.
But
you
that's
can sit
enough.
down and talk to God and say, what am I supposed to do? And then do it. And that's and whatever it is, be kind to your neighbor, because they're struggling to unpack their car, and you just go carry the stuff in.
Yeah.
You are just representing Jesus to them.
Yeah.
But don't tell them that. Like, just do it, right?
Yes.
Eventually they'll ask you, or the door will open to talk about it.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah. But they don't need a Bible verse.
No. They need a person.
And I'm a person who knows a lot of Bible verses, right? Like studied it for many years.
Yep.
But you just, that's not who you are.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I just want to say I'm super appreciative of you being here. I'm grateful that we can talk about representing Jesus well, and seeing like how that played out in a season where you had to endure in some really tough ways.
Sorry if I took it sideways. I'm just excited.
It's good.
I'm excited to have gone through and still be in the middle of these struggles, and then still have seen God's blessing in it. Like, and I'm not like any special person. Like, I think anyone could do what I'm doing. But just to try to step back and see how God is moving and try to adjust to it. It's been really good it's been the hardest of times. Like I always tell my kids, like, you find out who someone really is when things aren't going well.
Yeah.
I always used to say, like, when we were trying to figure out friendships, everyone's a great guy when things are going well. Right? But you see who they really are when things are falling apart.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that like things for me have pretty short of death, like pretty much have fallen apart. Yet I've still seen God move in that, and I think he's still teaching me stuff.
Yeah.
And in the end, I'm just trying to listen.
I think that's beautiful.
There's no magic to it. I'm just trying to listen.
You've always been one of your favorite verses is Noah did everything the way God told him to do it.
Yeah.
He just did it. And
that's all we really need.
Yeah.
Like, just go do what God tells you to do.
And you're such a big, advocate for obedience. Yeah. Obedience to what God wants you to do and just doing it, and you will see God's blessing when that happens. That's a fantastic way to represent Jesus well.
Yeah. It's simple. It's a good way to live. People think you got to give up so much to live that way. Just try. You don't. Follow God's direction with your money. Follow God's direction with your friendships. Just, it will, with your parenting, with your spouse, like in every major life area. Yeah. It will be better.
It will be better.
Especially if you've been struggling. Come on. What you're doing isn't working.
And I think that's what it takes, else. Right? Like sometimes it takes this like smack in the face, like it's not working. Yeah, right. It's not working.
But then like I do a lot of counseling, right? I see people like if something isn't working, they just keep wanting to do it the same way. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. Yeah. You might have wished it did, but it doesn't. It just doesn't work that way. But there's a new way, and you can start trying a new way today.
Yeah, right now.
Like you can change your whole life right now. Yeah. Everyone can, right? If a job is freaking you out, you can decide to quit and go do something else that's less stressful so you have more time for your spouse and your children. You can make that decision today. Yeah. Have less money and more time, right? We can all make those decisions. We're free. Yeah. God, I mean, there is free will. Yeah. Right? There's obedience, but there's also free will within it. And if your free will matches up with being obedient, things go really good.
And I imagine that this last year, I'm not going to waste my time on something that's stressing me out in a way that's not actually benefiting anybody has been harped pretty hard on for you. Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Oh, man. Well, I feel like there's a few more things we can continue to talk about in the future. So you're going to have to come back at some point. So you got to stick around if you're all right with that. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, we got definitely a lot more things to talk about. But with that, that's another episode of Represent Jesus Well. And I hope you tune in. I hope you keep on going. We're going to try and do about 2 of these a month and get these out pretty regularly. And I've got some fun plans for the future. So
thanks, Sam.
Should be good. Thanks for listening. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you.